never should go rushing around like this alone. Get out, and never, never come back, never.
Get out? Why get out? There's no reason.
Oh, there's plenty of reason.
My name is Charlotte. What's yours?
Up the airy mountain, down the rushing glen. You never can go hunting for fear of little men.
This is the emergency podcast system. This is not a test. Movies are bombing all over the country. They are posing as movies you already know. They may already be in your theaters, your neighbor's home, or even your own. Do not panic. Specialists have been dispatched. They will help you identify these pretenders and defend you against this invasion of the remake. Please stand by for further instructions.
Welcome to the Invasion of the Remake podcast. I am your host, Jason Bishop, and with me today, as always, the chair is empty, but he is here, Sam Stepanenko.
I'm in the asylum, woo, woo.
Just remember, don't go in the basement.
Oh, wait a minute, that's where I am.
Uh-oh. Well, we're going to be looking for a new host next week, Trish Backlund.
Hey, everybody. I escaped the asylum.
Yes, you did, and you've now escaped COVID. Don't catch COVID again.
No. You know what? 0 stars.
0 stars.
0 stars.
Right. What would you give Don't
That's
Go
my
in
review.
What would this movie be?
Don't look in the basement. Well, there's moments of brilliance in it. So, I'm going to give it a very generous 2.
Out of what?
5.
Oh, okay. Well, if you double that, that's 4 out of 10. That's
Right?
not so bad.
Exactly.
How about you, Sam?
I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. I saw all the sort of ideas there. I'd say closer to the 4.5 out of 10.
Okay.
I'm going to put it a solid 5 for me. I'm going to give it A for effort for the short film time and the small budget. It actually has some pretty good ideas going on in there. Some fairly complex characters delivered by actors who aren't really actors yet.
Yeah.
Some of them
Yes.
will be later. Some of them never do anything again.
No.
But I was fairly impressed with this 12-day shoot on $100,000.
Wow.
And that's why I like it's 4.5. Yeah, 4.5 to 5. It's a really solid effort. Given
Okay,
what
then
they had
I'm
to work
upping
with.
it to a 4 and a bit.
You're upping it a bit then.
A 4 and a bit.
Cool. Well, considering the last couple of weeks of Don't April, this is maybe the bar was set so low for me after the last 2 weeks that's why I was like, hey, there's some meat on the bone on this one.
There really
There certainly is. There's some redemption here.
Yeah.
There's some ideas. There's some ideas for sure.
Yes, Don't Look in the Basement in 1973 was also known as The Forgotten. It's probably a more appropriate title because they forgot about the basement for most of the movie.
Yes. Well, that's the odd part.
But it makes sense.
You should. It says don't look in the basement, but ultimately you probably should have at the beginning.
Well, at least nobody's even trying. Not really.
No. Nobody's been told no.
Yeah. But I think that was the change it to the kind of shock value type of title that the Don't label had. They even had in that classic movie trailer, they're pulling, they even show scenes of Last House on the Left to try to get that shock audience and thus get grouped in with the video nasties for that cult audience instead of just being forgotten.
Yeah.
Which is appropriate of the title.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, The Forgotten, when you talk about that is a note of this where they're this asylum and these patients and they're just out there. And honestly, a lot of people have forgotten about them. They're just sort of kept there out of the way of everything. I think maybe what part of it that I kind of made me uncomfortable with this movie was just, I was sad for a lot of these people. Like the old lady, I think she just had dementia and wasn't being properly treated.
Yes, Mrs. Kellingham.
I know.
Yeah, none of them were being properly treated, to be honest with you. Let's be fair. None of them were being properly treated.
Yeah, Dr. Stevens was using this obsession therapy, which is complete nonsense.
Yes.
But he was trying to lean in their problems and have them conquer it by letting them do the things
he was
that is their
hoping it
trauma.
would snap them out of it.
Yeah.
Here's the only reason I think maybe obsession would work. And I did have an idea about this, like, for depression. Other people are like, they're trying to lift them out of depression. No, push them down farther. Make them think that killing themselves is just a pointless exercise. That's what I figure. Because I'm like, sometimes people, I don't know, I've been so depressed. I'm like, yeah, what's the point? No need to kill yourself. It's just such a chore.
It sounds like you're just depressed and lazy.
That's it. You've got to make it so that it's just too much effort. But yeah, like the treatment it's bonkers. Like I guess the title of this movie should be "Don't Have a Shit Doctor."
Yeah, for example, what obsession therapy is for Dr. Stevens, and I'm taking this straight from the sequel that happened 40 years later.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, maybe I'll touch on it a little bit more later, but there's a doctor who has a patient who wants to smoke. Part of his problem is smoking, this obsession with smoking. And he just kind of slams his hands on the table. You want to smoke? You want to smoke? And he just starts shoving them in his mouth.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And he's like, well, do you want to eat or do you want to smoke? I want to eat.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that sort of the punishment that was around for a while with some parents? Caught your kid smoking, make them smoke the whole pack. And the idea was they didn't want to do it again.
And that goes back to the don't answer the phone a little bit, where that scene we talked about with the radio host, where she's like, tell your mom that the drugs are more important than she is. It's kind of that same vein of therapy, right? Is forcing them to acknowledge the problem.
Yeah, but it was done in such a hazardous manner.
Yeah, it's not like a whole cloth kind of approach. You can't apply that to every person. And this is a small asylum, basically run out of a large house.
In the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that was my biggest beef about the movie. And again, because of the short shoot time and short budget, but you didn't get enough time with these characters to sort of really connect to them and their illness.
Sam was the only one you spent any time with.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that did the characters a disservice. So it was really hard to empathize with them by the end there. I kept getting the three women confused. I didn't know who was who and who had what, or who was what their condition was, I should say.
Well, the kind of crazy withdrawn one, I kept her getting confused with the nympho one.
They kind of look a little bit alike, yeah.
There was that too.
And then the one with the baby kind of disappears halfway through the movie.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that would be one of the first things I would do, is give them more time at the beginning to get a sense of who they are.
Well, I also would have liked to have seen maybe a little bit more of Dr. Stevens, like really dig into how he is treating, like you only see him with the guy who's got an axe. That's the only patient you see him with. I
barely saw his face before he got that axe in the back.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. For such an important character, he gets no time at all.
But he's omnipresent.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, I would have liked to have seen him interact more with Sam and also with the woman with the baby. I wanted to see where that was going. Like, how he helps her lean into it, because it's not working.
They do give, like, half-assed descriptions of what their problems are, but it's not really deep enough. Like, with the woman with the baby, I'm like, that is some severe postpartum depression of some sort. And they just didn't define that very well, but she has this doll. She freaks out when anybody takes it from her.
Exactly.
They kind of were given these base traits, but there were enough of the trait that you could identify with what their problem was. Maybe except for Danny, though, the jokester that was laughing all the time. But there's always that one guy who's always laughing.
I think Danny was just, I don't know, he was just kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
That's the sense I got from him, is he was just a jerk. Yeah, and I kind of got the feeling that the lady with the baby, that she'd lost a child.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's what I thought.
What I thought, or at least that's what I wanted. I imagined it to be, and that's why she got so violent when somebody tried to take it away from her.
Absolutely.
Or she'd miscarried, something like that.
Something like that. Or perhaps she'd had like a very dodgy past, gotten involved with drugs, and the state had taken her baby. Like that would really cause that level of trauma, I would think.
But we already have the drug girl. That's Jennifer.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, I mean, they can both have drug problems.
Yeah.
A lot of people with mental illness self-medicate with drugs.
It's a fairly full, for such a small asylum. It's got quite a few patients, and it's really just one doctor and one nurse. And at the beginning of the movie, the nurse has had enough and quits. So we have an untested nurse that comes in later, and that's kind of, you're innocent, not used to anybody, and she's coming in where a big trauma's already happened and the doctor is dead. And
they're hiding it.
And they're hiding it. This new doctor, Dr. Masters, who we think is another doctor there.
And see, I picked that up right away. I was sitting there going like, she's a little off. I 100% expect her to be a patient.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then when it finally happened, I'm like, okay, there we are. Because I was just waiting for that reveal. It wasn't that surprising. Like it would have been more interesting to hold back on that a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And
because
that's
part of
what I was thinking of too.
Yeah. Part of her treatment was she was a doctor and she had lost a patient, and she's being allowed to assist and run around looking like a doctor and feeling comfortable in her own clothes because of obsession therapy, right?
Yeah.
And making her do the things that she would normally do. So when Dr. Masters gets the axe in the back, she just takes over.
Oh, Dr. Stevens.
Dr. Stevens.
Yeah. I know. It's keeping them straight sometimes.
It's a lot of characters here.
Yeah. So she just takes over. Because, I mean, this is the other part of it, too. And I think it would have been interesting to dig into it a bit. Whereas by feeding her obsession, he kind of caused the whole scenario. Like.
Oh, I'd agree with that. You've got the judge chopping wood as some sort of aggression therapy. And he gets in this zone, this mindset, and he turned his axe over to the doctor when he wasn't paying attention.
And what was his deal? Like, I mean, I know was he actually a real judge? Or maybe if he was a real judge?
Never told. Like, that was either some delusion of his. I mean, it's the same as the sergeant. I mean, at least if you got a vet of some sort from a war that's been broken from the things he's seen, he makes certain kind of sense without having to explain too much.
Exactly.
He was a bit silly. But with
the
helmet
PTSD, you could see.
Yeah, absolutely. You could take that ball and run with that.
But yeah, the judge I didn't quite get. Maybe he was a judge and went insane and killed somebody who got let off. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because maybe that was it. If he was obsessed with justice because he couldn't make it happen. I don't know.
That's not a bad hook, actually. And I think that's part of what we got to do with this. Because the way I saw this, it was just like a bloody half-assed version of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking the same thing, that it borrowed heavily from that sort of trope, but didn't give the patients enough time to really get to know them and figure out exactly what was happening with them.
And that's where you need to spend a little more time. I mean, it is a horror movie. This thing's a brisk hour and a half, actually just shy of. Mm-hmm. And it still has those 70s grindhousey tropes for sure. Mm-hmm. Nudity, gratuitous nudity. But I mean, you have this, one of the patients is an oversexed nymphomaniac. Well, and that's part of her trauma too, is not feeling love. And she feels like throwing it out there is how she gets love.
Yeah, she doesn't. Yeah, she can't.
She doesn't even understand what love is because she's been in an abusive relationship over and over and over again. At least that's how I saw it. There was enough being fed to me that, okay, I see where this character's coming from.
Like you say, I think she's been abused long enough, and the whole thing is like, well, my only value is my body. So if he has sex with me, then he loves me. Yeah. Which. Yeah, let's be honest. There's people that aren't in asylums that and you definitely have that.
And I see the dangers of having a patient like that in a mixed asylum where there are male patients and female patients.
Yeah.
That's going to be a problem with every male patient and even any male staff.
Yes.
Yeah. And they hint at that, but they don't really take it very far. There's that one scene with Danny where she kind of gets excited that he's finally showing her some affection, and then it turns into another prank by Danny, right?
Yeah.
Well, and then you have her throwing herself at the judge multiple times.
The telephone repairman.
Yep. That poor telephone repairman. I would have liked a bit of a misdirection where we thought he got out, but they didn't do that. I would have liked to have had a misdirection. When we find him later, it's more of a surprise.
It was enough of a misdirect that I thought that Allison had killed him.
Because he didn't love her.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. Like, she gets violent and angry when they don't reciprocate.
Yeah. And then, I mean, there's Jennifer, who really is walking around like a zombie the whole time and will do anything to get some more drugs. She's hiding them in her room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd like to see her have more peaks and valleys because she was kind of a non-entity in this. She was just kind of showed up in scenes and was in the background every scene she was in. And I'd like to see more of that up and down that they suggested she had.
Yeah, because we only see her most of the time being zombie, and then the one time where she's attacking the new nurse.
Yeah, like you have the doctor. She's like, she sometimes gets withdrawn, so I like to have her near me when that happens. And I'm like, she's always withdrawn.
But yeah, I mean, clearly they are aware because you have Dr. Masters, who's using the sergeant and Sam, not the Sam that's co-hosting this show, but the Sam that's in the movie, and they are guarding her door.
Yeah.
So they are aware that she becomes violent and needs watching, and they're using the patients to do that.
Because they have this whole idea, it's like, we're like a family here. I'm like, ooh, no, that's a bad way to set up therapy. I mean, you do need kind of that professional barrier.
Maybe that sense of responsibility gives them something to do, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, I like that. But I mean, as a doctor, you do need that detachment.
Well, and Sam is no longer really a patient. He has been lobotomized and is now childlike. He's not really a patient so much so as a resident.
Well, caretaker.
Because there's nowhere else he can go, So they're using him as a caretaker and a laborer. And I think they kind of suggest that that's what his role there is to sort of help out. He's the orderly, as it were, even though he's not at all equipped to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. He's kind and gentle, but easily manipulated.
Yeah. I just felt so bad for him. I loved him. All
right, let's go to the trailer. I have played this once before, way back in October. Actually, no, this would have been January, not October. January. Cult movie trailer a go-go. I played the trailer. Played the trailer for that. And the 40-year later sequel, which I did watch today, and I have revelations, but I will save that for later.
Don't look in the basement. The makers of Last House on the Left warn you again. To avoid fainting, keep repeating. It's only a movie. Only a movie. Only a movie. The line between sanity and madness can be crossed in a single step. And with this step, you enter the nightmare world of terror. On the day the insane took over the asylum, Judge Kamen, whose iron self-control hides the urge to kill. Harriet, a mother's love, twisted into the malignant shape of evil. The sergeant, living in the hell of an aimless war, fighting a battle within himself that he lost long ago. Allison, in a desperate need for love, an obsession that could drive her to murder. Danny, whose sense of humor triggers a violent act of revenge. Dr. Masters, who has her own idea of the gentle art of healing. And Charlotte, who left the world of sanity and security, only to be trapped in the nightmare world of madness, a nightmare she cannot escape. They all met on the day the insane took over the asylum. Don't look in the basement. From Hallmark Releasing Corporation, rated R.
All right, we are back. This was Don't Look in the Basement, 1973, aka The Forgotten, was based on an Edgar Allan Poe story. Does anybody know what the name of that story might be? Loosely
Don't Look in the Basement?
No.
No, I didn't think so.
I don't know. The only ones I know are The Telltale Heart and The Raven.
What? You don't know the classic The System of Dr. Tar and Professor Feather?
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
Oh, how silly of me.
Everybody knows that one.
Tar and Feather? Tar and Feather?
Yeah.
Yeah. Not everything from Poe is a winner.
No.
Apparently not.
Especially not that movie they made. Anyway.
This was written by Tom Pope. It was his only movie credit as far as a writer, but he directed a shit ton of music videos.
Ooh.
Shit ton. Some of the most memorable music videos you've ever seen, for sure. And he's the brother of Thomas Pope, who was uncredited for this movie, but was a screenwriter and had done things like The Manitou and The Lords of Discipline.
Ooh.
So I'm guessing his brother kind of pushed him, like, get out of your comfort zone, do something else, and maybe that'll lead you to features and get you out of music videos. Nope, he was very comfortable doing music videos for most of his life.
Honestly, music videos, it would be easier. It's like, okay, I just have some rock stars, make stuff happen, done.
It was directed by S.F. Browning, who directed another Don't movie, Don't Hang Up. Also, Keep My Grave Open and Scum of the Earth. He really was a Grindhouse guy.
Keep My Grave Open.
Yeah.
Love it.
And his son directed the sequel.
Nice.
Keeping it in the family.
That's all right. Why not?
Yeah. This stars in no particular order.
Yeah.
Because we got...
Because I had to look.
Yeah, they're all over the damn place on IMDb, but I would say Sam is definitely one of the feature characters in this, and he was first, so good for them. Bill McGee was Sam, and he was in a very classic B movie that I kind of want to see, Curse of the Swamp Creature.
Ooh, that does sound good.
Does. Jessie Lee Fulton was Jane St. Clair. She's the nurse at the beginning who quits but doesn't quite get out.
No. And that doesn't really come back.
No. She was in Paper Moon and The Last Picture Show.
Holy crap, she's got a great resume.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And she had a late start in her career. I think she started in her 50s.
Sweet. There's still hope. Love it.
There's still hope.
Yes. Robert Dracup was Ray Daniels, who got a name, but I'm assuming was the phone repairman, because I don't remember Ray Daniels.
He was the phone repairman. Yeah, I had to look him up, and I had to dig a little bit deeper and like, oh yeah, well, that's him.
Yeah.
I think actually the phone repairman says his name is Ray. I don't think they actually...
Yeah, I guess not. Why did they even give him a last name? But he was in Dr. Hooker's Brunch. But honestly, his most of his film career has been in the electrics department. He is a gaffer who's worked on lots of projects.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So they probably used it and they're like going, okay, so make it look like you're doing telephone repair things. He's probably like, I know how to do them.
Yeah, exactly. Do we have an electrician? You mean the lighting guy?
Yeah.
Can you act? How hard can it be?
Okay, so she's
Better
going to
than
hit on
these
you.
guys.
That's pretty much everybody in this movie, really.
Yeah.
How hard can it be? Maybe that's what they got good and drunk and made this movie.
There are moments of brilliance, I will concede, with some
the
of these
acting,
people.
considering some of the stuff we've seen this month, acting for people who don't have a lot of acting skills, I mean, some of them do,
Yeah.
was really quite good
Oh, yeah.
in comparison.
Oh, in comparison to going back to Don't Answer the Phone, but in comparison to this is freaking Academy Award material.
Yeah, right. Harriet Warren was Jennifer, and the only other credit she had was one episode of Rhoda.
Hey, if you're going to go out, go on a high note. Rhoda is great.
But Jennifer was the drug addict. I'm going to let you know their characters as we go. Michael Harvey was Dr. Stevens. He was in Once Upon a Time in the West. He is the doctor who the asylum is named after and gets an axe in the back and stuffed in a basement. And we think he's dead for most of the movie, but he's not. And then he is again.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that they keep dropping you clues that he's not dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's an asylum and Sam's constantly talking about Dr. Stevens and still talking to Dr. Stevens, but you just think it's a delusion because here's this large childlike man who has just experienced a trauma of a father figure going, and you just figure that's part of his trauma.
Well, you kind of have like little kids who be like, I still talk to grandma and grandpa. Like, I kind of took it as that, where it's like, maybe he does have a supernatural element as a mind of a child.
Yeah, I kept wondering if maybe there was a ghost element to this or something. But
no, and so I thought that was actually pretty smart.
Yeah, like I said, some great ideas in this movie. Jesse Kirby was Danny. He was probably the most annoying character in this movie.
Yeah.
He didn't have much going for them. He was just a pest. He was pestering the other patients, stealing Harriet's doll, and just laughing all the way. Sometimes he was just laugh. That's kind of his character.
Yeah. We need to figure out something for Danny.
Yeah. But
He's also the only connection.
he is the only connection in episode 44.
Last
He
house on
was
the left?
No, he was an extra kind of basically on Logan's Run. He has like soldier number 2 or something like that was his
Sweet.
credit.
Yeah. We never talked about him, but
Well, it's soldier number 2. Yeah, we had a rich backstory for soldier number 2.
considering the trailer literally name drops Last House on the Left, I could not find any connection to Last House on the Left.
See, I thought it was going to be because he reminded me so much of the one younger character in there, the one younger boy with the curly hair.
I'm wondering if it's the same company, Hallmark Releasing. I'm
Ooh.
fairly certain it has nothing to do with the Hallmark of today. But I love the thought that might be true.
Imagine this movie as a romantic comedy. Young girl, high-powered woman goes home to help her dad in an asylum and falls in love.
Just, you're channel flipping and you land on the Hallmark channel and here's this fucking movie.
Don't look in the basement.
I really hope that's true.
Oh, yeah.
I want it to be true. Hugh Fagan was Sergeant Jaffe. He was in Don't Hang Up.
A lot of this cast was.
A lot of this cast was. Betty Chandler was Allison King. And Sergeant Jaffe we talked about, his basically PTSD soldier constantly looking out the window for attack. Betty Chandler was Allison King. This is the one that's always looking for love. This is her only credit.
Really? I thought she was quite good in this. Like, it's hard to make those swings from trying to seduce someone to being violently angry. Like, to me, she nailed it.
And then the nude scenes on top of it all.
Yeah.
For an untrained actress, wow. Camilla Carr was Harriet. She also goes back to episode 44, Logan's Run. She's also in the sequel. As a different character, though. Obviously.
Obviously.
Well, yeah.
There's only two survivors of this movie.
Yeah, true. Poor Sam.
Gene Ross was Judge Oliver W. Cameron, and he was also in Don't Hang Up. Annabelle Weinick was Dr. Geraldine S. Masters. She was also in a much better horror movie called Deadly Blessing.
Yes. And for some reason, I don't know, I am having that terrible thing where you think something happened and it didn't, and for some reason I thought we did it, but we didn't do it.
No.
But I've seen it.
Maybe one day. But I thought she was really quite good. She really was the glue that held this movie together.
Yeah.
She really was, yeah.
Although I really wish it would have been more subtle from the beginning. I wanted more of a misdirect.
Yeah, I wanted to see that.
Because as soon as she wants to cover up the murder, that sort of tipped it for me.
Me too.
I think I just got lost in the movie because I didn't even think about it until they made the reveal. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
I was going the whole way.
I told Val about this blah 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 blah, and she's actually an inmate or a patient. And sure enough, like 5 minutes later, after I told Val, I was like, oh, there's the reveal. But yeah, no, it was pretty blatant, just because she was trying too hard to cover it up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and that's where I want to see that gradual intensity build with her.
Yeah,
So,
with her losing control. I mean, there's things happening in the asylum, in the shadows, way early when she's still got control, but we don't see her demeanor shattered till later. But we shouldn't see that stuff change until things get a little deeper and a little more threatened. Mm-hmm. And that's where the nurse would come in, right? And unfortunately, the nurse that came in as the new hire just felt like a victim most of the time.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I would like to change is she is the glue that sort of ties us to all these characters, and we need to see her interacting with them differently.
I want her to be, she comes in and her whole point is she wants to be all in on this therapy. She's really excited about it. So I kind of want her to be all in on this therapy and like really spend as much time with the patients as she can. And that's how she uncovers some of this.
I got 2 more casts here.
Okay.
Rosie Holitic was Nurse Charlotte Beale. We were just talking about her. She's the new hire that comes in, was hired by Dr. Masters, but by the time she shows up, Masters is dead. Or not Masters. I keep doing that. Oh my God. She was hired by Dr. Stevens.
Yeah.
And then she shows up and he's dead. So she has to kind of talk her way into staying and being hired on. Makes me wonder if she ever got a paycheck.
Right?
Yeah, because this all happened seemed to be pretty quickly, within like a week. So I don't think she did. She
And-
got away with her life.
That's right. And then there's Rhea McAdams, who was the elderly patient, Mrs. Kellingham.
Who has the most horrific thing happen to her.
Yes, Dr. Masters says she cut out her own tongue. That's when I was like, I don't think she did.
No.
Mrs. Kellingham is the only one telling Charlotte to get the hell out.
Yep.
Like right from the get-go. Soon as she meets her, get out.
Exactly.
But can't quite put it into words, and then she breaks into a creepy little nursery rhyme.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
which I loved.
I did
gotta
too.
admit, I kind of love that.
well, I think that's sort of why I went with dementia for her, because it was sort of like she has that moment of lucidity where she's telling the nurse exactly what she needs to hear and exactly what's true. But then the illness comes back, and that's the thing with dementia. You have those moments where it's beautiful, those beautiful butterfly moments where everything is fine, and then you don't.
But, I mean, from Charlotte's perspective, it's just going to sound like psychobabble to her.
It really is.
Until things start going wrong.
Yeah, and like she doesn't ask enough questions.
No.
She's got to be more proactive.
That's
She's like
When the
Bad
phone
nurse.
stops working.
Yes.
Why don't you work? Why don't you work?
Yeah, that took me out a bit. I was like, oh God.
The phone company showed up on their own.
Yeah,
That was weird.
right?
That was very weird.
If they would have said something like, oh, Dr. Masters called to get the phones fixed. But Dr. Masters was clearly the one that cut the phone lines in the first place.
Well, didn't the guy say there was like suspicious voltage spikes or something?
A drop in voltage, yes. I can tell you categorically that no phone company ever has been that proactive in their customer service.
No. Maybe in the
Ever.
70s?
Yeah, maybe in the
No,
70s they
never.
did their job.
I don't know. I wasn't alive when this movie came out. I don't know what the world was like.
It depends when this opened. I might have been alive.
Yeah.
Barely.
But here's the thing, is back in 73, that probably was a party line.
Oh, there you go. Yes. Hey, that's the key. It is a party line. And the people on the other side are kind of wondering. Because it is a farmhouse in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and it must have some sort of government funding, and places like that have funding and they need communication with oversight. There's got to be some sort of oversight on top of it. Yeah, that totally makes a certain kind of sense. If they've lost communications, they're going to send somebody out to check that. Don't know if it's the phone guy.
Yeah.
They might send one of their own guys to check to see what's going on out there first before they phone the phone guys.
They'd probably send out an IT guy at that point, right? Because
Yeah.
they have their
Ooh.
own service, right? But
That could be it. That could be the whole point. Like with one of us, we just replaced that telephone guy with an IT guy that works with the company, like works with the, I don't know, the healthcare center or the fund.
yeah, and that changes that dynamic with that whole discussion that Masters has with him. It's like, well, no, I'm authorized to be here. I am an employee and you are beholden to this company, so you're going to need to let me in.
And that's when you can also see she would lose control at that point.
Yeah, I think that would be
Yeah.
a great moment for that switch to start going.
Exactly. It's starting to come out. She can't hold it in
Yeah.
any longer.
Well, Masters
Somebody-
lives up to her name. She likes to be in control.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that would set up a great moment where she can see that she's not really in control of things,
Yeah,
and I could start that break, that manic break for her.
Exactly.
yeah.
Yes. Love it. Love it. We figured that part out. I love it.
When he shows up, and again, by that point, Mrs. Kellingham has lost her tongue, and she's still trying to warn him to get
know.
out.
Oh. Yeah, I guess it just upset me so much. Like she's got enough problems and now she doesn't have a tongue. And then he says like she's got something like, I hope you're not contagious. I'm like, no, that's not
the
bad
script
comedy.
goes,
No.
Yeah, the script goes awry at times. Unfortunately, having watched the sequel, there's some rather misplaced tonal comedy as well. It's like, whoa, the tone is really jumping around all over the place here. But I guess in that regard, it might have been on purpose to keep in the tone with this one.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, that was
Yeah.
out of left field.
Well, there's so few moments of it, so that for that moment of levity to be there, or attempted levity, because it didn't work, it didn't land at all.
Mm-hmm.
But
You know,
yeah, it
what,
just felt out of place.
you know what I think also might help a little bit is, okay, we talk about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You have those moments where the patients are kind of having fun and doing fun things together and actually enjoying each other's company. I think we need a moment like that to kind of give us a little bit of levity and a little bit of, to kind of put us out of the movie a bit until we ramp up the scare again.
Yeah, like group therapy, right? Where you have everybody kind of together, because they're already interacting in this house. There are no locks on the doors. Oops.
I know.
Maybe they should.
They really should. Well, at one point she threatens to lock somebody in their room, and I'm like, but how?
Okay, you just told us there's no locks on the door. Apparently there are locks on the door, they just don't lock them.
Yeah.
Supposedly, yeah.
Yeah. You should give the staff a key.
Yes.
What staff? There's a nurse and a doctor.
Yeah, and the one nurse kept getting people walking in on her.
Oh
Yes.
my God. Yeah. Creepy Danny. And then the judge. And I didn't get that interaction. There will be a time for this. Like, what? What's
Yeah.
going on? Why?
Yeah, when it looked like he was going to just chop her head off, but maybe he was there to get Danny out of the room. I don't know, but we see him first and then Danny, and then he gets rid of Danny. And
Yeah.
so I don't know what the hell was going on there. It just felt like weird, creepy filler and didn't make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. I think
Yeah,
they just
that could've
wanted
been-
him to threaten her.
Yeah,
Well-
at least they didn't go in like a comfortable, rapey places
Yes.
with them.
I love how you put that. That's the comfortable rapey place.
No, I said uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable. Okay, yeah. I'm like going the rapey place where they just, to me, when you said that, I was like, yeah, horror movies really do go in that as a comfort zone for that type of interaction.
Maybe back then, yeah. But I kept like, please don't do that. Please don't do that. And they never did it.
Which
No,
was
everything
pleasing.
Yeah.
everything in there was consensual, even if it was due to a mental disorder. It was consensual.
Mm-hmm. Maybe that was the other thing. You know, you can put that part into it. Whereas there is a reason there's no rapey vibe in there is because of the one woman who's so sexually aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
They chose male patients who had no interest.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do that.
I still can't really wrap my head around what Danny's thing was, but I mean, other than being a prankster and how we fix him a little bit.
He's the toughest one because he's the one who had the least definable syndrome or condition. Because he was just manic. Like he was just all over the place and with nothing to indicate what was wrong with him, so for lack of a better term.
Well, you know, maybe they mention briefly his mother, like his mother ran a massage parlor in Miami or something like that. Like it could be he just is sort of psychotic, but like also probably because, I don't know, maybe fetal alcohol or something like that. Like he has no impulse control.
He wasn't really raised, right? Like his mom was working all the time, not getting any attention, not being told no. Yeah. Just doing what he wants at any given time.
Yeah. Like kind of a narcissist, but like very poor social skills. Can't.
Yeah.
He couldn't live in the world because he doesn't know how to deal with things. Yeah. Like you could have them kind of constantly being like, no, Danny, you have to say please. You have to say like maybe we could have it like that. Like he just can't function.
Well, that just sort of brought something up that I just realized is everybody in that facility except for Sam was prone to violence at some point. Right?
True.
So what if the facility is an experimental facility for people who have committed violence due to their mental disorder, right? So he is...
And that's why it's in the middle of nowhere.
Well, it's in the middle of nowhere, exactly. So it's some sort of obsession aversion therapy to help address the violent tendencies that they exhibit.
You would definitely need more staff, orderlies, doctors that would have a patient cycle.
And that's the challenge we'd have is how do we address that, the missing staff?
Oh, you just add more staff, more potential bodies.
That's true. Yeah, we could have some more orderlies and
well, but that doesn't work because then they know Masters is a patient.
Yeah,
you got to get rid of them all early if that's the case.
You know, it could be like this weird private fund, like you say, like kind of a ghost fund, and that's the whole thing. Like they're not really generally supposed to be doing this, but it's like sort of under the radar, under the table.
It's a small experiment.
It's a small experiment.
Wait a minute. What if families have paid for this alternative therapy because they don't want their families in
hiding their shames.
Hiding their shames, yeah.
That's not a bad idea. I mean, part of why Stevens founded this asylum is because of what he did to Sam. He did his last lobotomy on Sam and refused to do it again.
Yeah.
So he was looking for other treatments, and this would be an experimental treatment, which would probably be voluntary, or at least voluntary by the families of the patients.
Yeah, there we go. I like that idea.
Yeah, that solves a lot of problems, and that would explain why we have fewer staff as well.
Mm-hmm.
Is because it's just to keep the group small and manageable.
And you would have these people also, like maybe their families have volunteered for this because they're not being treated like they're in a lockdown situation. Like they felt that this was a better way to treat them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Like they're trying to be compassionate. It's not going great, but they're trying.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like they had been going great. They always say that they act like a family in there. And then, of course, when the father figure dies, then everything goes out the freaking window.
No more rules.
Yeah.
And then you have the crazy person, the narcissist. Like, that's the other thing. Dr. Master is a major narcissist.
Oh, yeah. She has a god complex like
And a bit of a
none other.
sociopath. So, yeah, you can't have her. Once you get that person in charge, things are going to fuck up.
Especially once her illusion is broken.
Yeah, because she's not looking for treatment. She's looking for control.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then she's like, I hate punishing people, but I'll do it. Like when she makes the sergeant hold onto that burning piece of paper. Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, Sergeant sees her as a superior.
Yeah.
She treats Sam like a child.
Yep. Jennifer, she just, I don't know, she kind of treats as a pet, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, she gets really mad when she finds the drugs in her room, and she knows exactly where they are.
Yep.
And initially, when we find that the drugs are missing, that Charlotte finds the drugs are missing, I actually thought that by that point that Masters had put it there.
Oh, yeah. See, I thought Masters had been constantly dosing Jennifer to keep her compliant.
When she runs into the room to go get it, it's like, oh, this isn't that way. But she was kind of protective. And in a way, I mean, she is a motherly figure to these oddball characters. I mean, certainly Sam sees her that way, which is why he has his complete violent outburst at the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
As the rest of the patients are getting revenge and sees mom dead.
Yeah, and then he loses it.
He loses it and kills everybody else.
Yeah, and then has a popsicle.
I like that ending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the fact that he liked popsicles. Like, and it is quite interesting, that one interaction where she's like, you have to go sweep the kitchen, but can I have a popsicle? Yes, and then you can have a popsicle. I'm like, yeah, that is exactly the sort of bargaining I would do as a child.
Mm-hmm. And it's too bad he had such a mentality as a child. He just didn't know how to help Dr. Stevens.
Yeah.
After he should have gone to the hospital, but there's nobody to take him.
Yeah.
Like he
can't drive.
He can't drive. He probably doesn't know what to do. So he does the only thing he can do, sticks him somewhere else and sneak some food or whatever. But I mean, he was barely alive to begin with.
Yeah, maybe it was like Sam was in and out of care for most of his life. He doesn't know any better, and he'd been there so long. That's the only place he knows. Like, to leave would be so terrifying for him.
Yeah. I have revelations about Sam from the sequel, but I won't let that influence what we're doing. So I'm going to save that till later.
Okay.
They're quite surprising.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think we can have Sam having been lobotomized now, though, because they haven't done that since the 70s.
No.
But why not keep it in the 70s?
That would be the only way to fix that.
Yeah.
Of course, then that changes our IT guy situation.
Yeah, but you can still make him the phone guy. But like you say, he works for the company. It's like, we haven't had a report in 2 days.
Yeah, you start setting up the oversight in the closer city.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is a smaller community that's isolated where this place is. And oftentimes that's where asylums had larger areas or estates. So there'd be some oversight. So you just set that up early.
There's another way, though.
Okay.
You can have somebody who delivers their groceries and all their facility, all the stuff that, because I mean, nobody's going into town.
Yeah, there would be regular deliveries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could have it being a delivery person.
That makes sense. Yeah. You would have deliveries to a place like that for sure.
Yeah, because we've kind of gotten rid of the oversight too by making it a private facility. So that actually solves all
doesn't
the
even
problems.
have to be a repair guy. So long as strangers that aren't part of the community are walking in, then you can do stuff with them.
Exactly.
Well, actually, if it's their regular delivery guy, that's even better because then you get rid of that really awkward thing that's seen on the stairs with the judge and Mrs.
Kellingham.
Yeah, I want to say Cunningham, but I knew I wasn't right on that.
It's okay. They said names differently all the time.
They really did.
Jane and Joan. I never knew who that first nurse was that quit and then got killed.
I only knew when I watched the credits. I was writing down names from the credits.
Yeah, because everybody called her something different.
Yeah.
And they called Masters Jillian because some people called her by her first name, which was another clue that she wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, Geraldine. Yeah, that she wasn't really a doctor in retrospect.
Yeah.
But yeah, if it's their regular delivery guy, it gets rid of that awkward scene, and then they can have that discussion where Masters, instead of saying, "Well, what are you doing here? How'd you get in here?" She says, "I don't want you coming in here without notifying me first," kind of thing.
Yeah, and you could have the delivery guy being like, "No, I come here to deliver, and that's what I'm going to do."
Yeah. And you can say, "Well, how am I supposed to notify you when the phone doesn't work?"
There you go. Yes, got it.
Bring it back around.
Nice. And then it actually makes sense that Dr. Masters would kill this person as well, because he doesn't want it getting out to anybody that Stevens isn't around anymore.
Because the delivery person will know it's, well, also the delivery person, you could have that interaction with Mrs. Kellingham, and he's like, what the hell happened? Because he knows her. She had a tongue last time I was out here.
Yeah. And I mean, this is the whole reason in the movie why Charlotte can't leave either. Dr. Masters just locked the place down, and of course you can't let the one nurse that's helping her out leave. She knows too much, for one.
Yeah.
As soon as she goes out, well, I couldn't find Dr. Stevens, and then the jig is up, right? As soon as she talks to anybody.
Exactly. And we just have to explain what happens when a delivery person goes missing. Because I'm sorry, but if a delivery person goes missing and doesn't check in,
cops,
or has missed the next delivery, there's cops everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, I think we shift the time frame to be a bit shorter, because once he doesn't come back, the police from the neighboring town will come out, and they can find the nurse after she's escaped.
Yeah, it's only really a few more nights before the entire shit show happens. So, I mean, it would take a good couple of days before a cop would show up.
Well, you could also have him as like, yeah, this is my last delivery before I go fishing. And that could be...
Yeah, or my last delivery before the weekend, so that gives us like a couple days for everything to go to shit. But yeah, you just need something to make that not a plot hole, because we hate plot holes.
We do.
Yeah, but I think the key to this remake, because honestly, I don't want to change a heck of a lot, but the key to this is to being able to relate to the patients more.
Well, and expanding the world, like know what world you're in.
Yeah, no, and I think that all those scenes where Charlotte and Dr. Masters are interacting with them are quote unquote therapy sessions, and you get to know them instead of like just these sort of random interactions of like veiled threats and manic moments that don't make any sense in context with the film.
Yeah.
So yeah, they could have one-on-one sessions with them. I think we start the movie with a group session instead of that weird scene at the beginning where with Sam and the sergeant in the bedroom.
And then you get an immediate misdirect, because you've got Dr. Masters sitting there in her doctor gear, even though she's a patient.
Yeah.
And you think this is, she's taking notes, and you've got Dr. Stevens in this group. So right away, that sets her up as something credible, because she's not saying anything.
Love it.
She's not saying that she's not a doctor. She just looks like one. Instead of just kind of appearing out of nowhere once Stevens gets killed.
Right?
Yeah. And
you need to set her up earlier.
And I would like his quote unquote demise to be accidental. Like he accidentally gets pushed down the stairs or over the railing, because it just felt like the judge's violence against him didn't quite work for me.
Danny's manicness.
Yes, I like that. Yeah, that works better for me than the judge.
That does work. Yeah.
And I don't want to see the cover up. I do not want to see the Masters kind of taking control and doing the cover up. I just want his accident, and then the next scene you have Charlotte come in and Masters explain there was an accident, and they're reassessing the program, and they're not sure they have a place for her.
Yeah.
Right. So instead of covering up the blatant cover up of the death, it's more like we're reassessing the program, and we're not sure there's going to be a place for you, that kind of thing. And then you can have her then reassess her own thoughts on it. Well, maybe I could use a little bit of help around here, because she knows that she's not going to be able to handle it by herself, and she takes another look at it.
Yeah, it's sort of easier than she's like, oh, we had a terrible accident, and Dr. Stevens is dead. And I mean, like, the nurse has no further questions. Like, if it's an accident, you probably are fine. But
but yeah, I think that if she doesn't hint at anything, we don't know that there's a cover up, or if the audience doesn't know that it's been covered up by her, that becomes a lot more believable.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I mean, I think you need to seed some of that, but subtly.
Yeah.
I mean,
we're keeping all of Sam's bits where he says, "I've talked to Dr. Stevens."
Yeah. And I think they to their credit, they did try. They just weren't super subtle. Like, she puts a file in her drawer, and like, maybe we should see her rejigger the files before somebody shows up instead of doing it right in front of her. It just looks like file work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Just something so that reveal is more of a reveal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you do it subtly. You just have her acting like a doctor because she has the skills to do it. She was a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And her motives are good. She just wants to keep her family together.
Yeah.
But she has to be in control of it.
She wants control. Her motives are okay. She sits there's like, I could have saved billions of lives. I don't think you could have, dear.
That's
You're not great.
But the script goes a little awry. But I mean, she does have a god complex, so of course she would say something like that. But I think you want to approach her character more from that motherly aspect.
Yeah.
As things get out of control in the asylum, then the walls start cracking. You have, I mean, Sam, I wouldn't change too much. You have him hiding the body of Dr. Stevens, who's actually not dead. And I mean, that all worked brilliantly. To be honest, you just think he's crazy.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that worked really well. And I would like to definitely keep that.
Well, I'd like to have him be like, I'm taking Dr. Stevens' lunch. Like, I would like to have him, and then he's like, oh, Sam. Like, and then Dr. Masters is like, oh, Sam, he truly believes he's not gone. And it's like in front of her. I think that would be hilarious.
And you have that everybody treating him like he just isn't dealing with this loss of a father figure. You should have that sorrow that's happening within the community.
Yeah.
Because the rest of them probably also see him as a father figure as well, and they wouldn't know what Sam knows.
Yeah.
And that, again, that comes back to the sort of treatments of discussing what happened, and that's where we get our outbursts, and we see these tendency to violence from each of them as they're dealing with the loss of this figure that was actually helping them.
Now, I mean, we're adding more dramatic beats, which might slow down this horror movie.
Yeah.
And I think in a way it's just shifting it a little bit more into a darker thriller and away from horror. And I don't know. I'm oddly okay with that. Yeah. I don't know if we need to have all the splatter stuff.
It seems to me like this is what the movie wanted to be. The only reason we're getting all this blood is because that was how they had to sell it.
Yeah. Horror movies were cheap to make and easy draws.
Yeah.
Still are.
That's how they got their funding. Like, we'll have some good splatter kills. And that's fine, but I think they just had loftier ambitions for what this movie should have been.
Yeah, I don't think they could have sold it any other way, to be honest.
No.
Yeah. And I mean, if we move from sort of this low build dramatic thriller up to kind of like the Martyrs thing at the end, where it's all splatter in the third act, it's just going to make it that much more impactful too. It's like, well, you've gone from something that was kind of slow and moving, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, I got a horror film now.
Yeah, it's chaos.
It just makes that last act a lot more powerful too.
The hysteria is finally.
Now, I think like Harriet and Allison might need a little smoothing out as well. Like they do feel like they were given characteristics and then not much else. But as we said, that's kind of key to most of these characters, is we need to see more and get behind them a little bit more. Allison at least felt like a little more rounded character when she wasn't breaking into heat. Going into heat.
Well, she was undressing at the drop of a hat because she thought that was her only value.
Yeah.
And we really do need to kind of go into like going, somebody maybe explaining to her, you know what, you could have her interact with the nurse a lot more, where the nurse she's like, you're so pretty. I bet your men love you. All the men, they just fall over you. And the nurse is like, no.
But that would feed into her trauma, though. I mean, you have this very attractive nurse that's coming in. Like stunningly so. So that plays really well into Allison's character. And that was something I was thinking that way when I was doing my casting.
Yeah, because it just enhances her insecurities.
Yeah, because she's like, this other person in her mind has more value for love.
Yeah, and it is really for that character's self-worth. I think we kind of easily explained Harriet.
Oh, yeah. Like I say, she lost her baby, or through, you know what? I think maybe through a mistake she had made, she lost her baby and she blames herself. And that's the trauma of it. Like maybe a crib death. She thinks, crib death. She didn't do anything wrong.
Matter, just that she lost the baby.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's really all that matters as far as that character goes. The how isn't as critical.
Yeah.
And I think that we can help fill in the sort of.
Well, I mean, Sid's anything really. I mean, she could have done everything right, and the baby still would have died.
And I think I kind of like the idea of the how, where it's nothing she did wrong.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, that sense of powerlessness is sort of what's driving her and why she is so protective of that baby.
I mean, and it's such a real thing.
Yeah.
You know, sudden infant death syndrome. So that, I can't even imagine what people go through in real life with this. So,
No, you're
I mean,
right, yeah.
that's certainly something we could play with her, and it would just be instant sympathy for her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And those are all easy things to address. You can just have Masters introducing Charlotte to each patient, saying, okay, so this is Harriet, right? She has this is what she sort of manifests, and this is how we sort of get to know Harriet, is through that explanation that Masters gives Charlotte.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you give Harriet a little bit more to do, so she's not quite so one-dimensional.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, Jennifer should just go right out of the gate that she's a drug addict. It should be some sort of secret. So, okay, we've got pretty much everybody figured out except for Danny, I think.
Except for Danny. Yeah.
He's frustrating, but I mean, you sometimes have these manic and violent characters. I guess we kind of figured him out.
Yeah,
with his
like he's, I
just
think...
completely unaware of barriers. I've actually met people kind of like Danny. Not to that extent, mind you, but...
No, but I mean, you can have impulse control and no facility of barriers if there's any sort of substance abuse in utero.
Well, if we're still sitting in the 70s, why not just have him as undiagnosed autism or Asperger's?
Ooh, like that.
Yeah, which just makes it's sad him even being in there because they don't know what they're treating. They don't know how to treat it. So many illnesses over history were treated as people being crazy because they hadn't diagnosed it yet.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, and we can change his character up. He doesn't need to be that annoying prankster. He can be sort of that, I don't want to say withdrawn character because we have that with Jennifer, but sort of like he freaks out when anybody touches him, and he doesn't communicate very well. I think that makes
and when
him
he
more
does,
interesting,
it's
actually.
blunt,
Yes.
super blunt. Oh my god! And because he's super blunt, that also keys into like some of the misdirect. I mean, he'd say like, "Dr. Stevens isn't dead. Dr. Stevens fell. He fell and he hurt himself."
Yeah,
and maybe why he keeps taking Harriet's doll is it's a toy.
Yeah.
It's just like,
why can't I play with the toy?
Yeah, why can't I? I want to play with it now. And it's a completely different reason. It's because
he's not being cruel. He's just doesn't understand.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. And then because Danny was aggravating, but it was like now we need to have some way of connecting to Danny.
Yeah, he's like what felt like a movie psycho.
Yes. And he had no dimension at all. He just popped up randomly to be annoying.
Yeah. Okay. Now let's move on to Charlotte. She's the new nurse. I think for the most part, we've kept her the same as to why she gets there.
Yeah.
But we need her character
less of a victim.
I don't mind her being inexperienced and not always knowing how to deal with it, but we should see it as a stressor, not so much of a panic freak out. She just feels too much like a victim in this, and she needs to have her barriers and say no one to push back and say no.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we also need her to hit a certain panic point where, I mean, she's also the one responsible for Dr. Stevens actually dying because she's being pursued in this asylum and thinks she gets grabbed by the leg and thinks, oh shit, they got me.
Right.
And beats the shit out of Dr.
What does she
Stevens.
beat him with?
I never quite got that myself.
It looked like a weird propeller or an oar. I don't know what it was.
I don't know what it was either.
It was just this weird gray thing that she picked up and hit him with. I wasn't sure what it was either.
Just kind of finished him off. I mean, a light breeze probably would have done it.
Yeah. See, I would have liked to have him be somewhat kind of cared for in the basement. Like they're trying to keep him alive. And I think it would be probably because Masters knows money goes away if Dr. Stevens is dead. I can't keep staying here. I can't keep like she needs to kind of have him alive.
73, it's forging signatures.
Yeah.
That's a pretty easy workaround. So
I don't think I that was a really false note for me. Was when she killed him, even accidentally. It just felt wrong to me.
He took an axe, but it's this
clumsy.
she gets hit twice and dies.
Yeah.
Like the guy took an axe, and that doesn't do it.
Yeah.
But this weird gray thing finishes him off.
I say, okay, if we establish an axe and that aggression therapy that the judge has, we haven't addressed the judge. Maybe he doesn't need to be a judge.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well,
Maybe he does have a session of good versus evil.
I think that was probably it. Like, I think maybe
Charlotte confiscates the axe.
There we go.
When he breaks into her room and get your ass back to your room.
Yep.
And she kind of goes, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But now when things go to, she's got that as a weapon. And
and you can kill a person with an axe. That makes more sense.
Boom. Because I don't mind the wrongful death per se.
No, not necessarily.
Because I can't actually see the patients doing that.
Yeah.
And because we've made the patient an accident the first time.
Yeah.
But as the patients lose their grip, then they are starting to get a little bit murdery.
Yeah. And
but it's
at
most
that point,
of the
she's starting
murder
to feel threatened by them too.
Yeah,
so yeah,
most of the murders are happening because of Masters.
Yeah, Masters is the murderer most of the time. That's the interesting part, is all these people have violent tendencies, but the whole point of, like, I love that misdirect where they seem violent, but Masters is the one who's doing all the shit.
Yeah.
She killed everybody.
And I like how the patients saw Nurse Charlotte as another patient.
Yes.
Where, like, you're working for Masters. Masters is treating you like a patient. You're one of us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's totally Todd Browning's Freaks near the end. It's like one of us. And when things go out of all of the entire family groups in and takes care of Masters.
Yeah.
And I love the back and forth poor Sam has, because he's protecting his father figure. Nurse Charlotte's just trying to get the fuck out.
Yeah.
And she accidentally kills Stevens.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sam's holding her because you just killed my dad.
Yeah.
And then realizing Masters is not being a good person and is controlling him and everything else and was responsible for all of this. Then kind of helps her, but he still cares for Masters. I love how you have a mom and a dad in this.
Mm-hmm.
And he sees mom dead and then kills everybody else in a rage.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he does a job of it too.
This movie's tragic.
And
it really is.
Can we talk about that music? Over the last scene with him crying and eating a popsicle. What the hell was that?
Budget constraints?
Boop-a-doo, boop-a-doo. Like, no.
That was the 70s, public domain.
Yeah. They actually pull a little of that music. They have 2 comedy orderlies in the sequel. Utilize that sound in the background of their scenes.
Oh, I was just, I would say that's the one part of the movie that enraged me and took away a lot of its points.
Yeah, that should have been a slow pull out of him eating the popsicle covered in blood.
Yeah.
With and actually, I don't know if I would have had any music at all. Just fade to black and run the credits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let everybody stew in it for a while.
Yeah, let that powerful moment hit you.
Don't unwind them with bad music.
No, it was like a Last House on the Left when they put that boopy doopy doop music at certain points, and I'm like, no.
Actually, I think it was the same music because for some reason I seem to remember reading somewhere that they used some of the music from Last House on the Left because they already had the rights to it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
there we go.
I can see that.
Don't quote me on it because I may be wrong, but for some reason I remember reading that somewhere.
All right. Well, we didn't change too much, but I think we've got a more well-rounded film because of it. So now we get into some fantasy casting, and we've got a lot of cast to talk about.
Yes, we do.
So, Sam, why don't you give us your picks for...
Okay, I will do that. And I did cast everybody because, well, you needed to.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those movies where you did need to.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with my Nurse Charlotte because she is technically the central figure of the film. So
Sam and Charlotte, yeah.
So there's Sam and Charlotte and Masters as well to a certain extent. But I cast Britney Snove currently in the movie X, which is getting great reviews that I haven't seen yet.
I do want to see that too.
Yeah, I've been hearing really good things about it. But I like her. I think that she's got the right look for a young nurse.
Yeah.
Sure.
A youngish nurse. She's actually in her 30s now, but she still looks pretty young.
I don't think we should be too constrained by age in this.
Yeah. No, not at all.
I mean, I think the nurse should be young, but that's the only one, mainly because I want that inexperience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, she didn't have to necessarily be young, just inexperienced. Maybe she's done a career change.
I mean, well,
right?
considering how long you have to train to be a nurse just becoming a nurse in your early 30s is not out of the realm.
Oh, absolutely.
Not at all. Not at all. My Dr. Masters, I went with Clea Duvall.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
My Sam, I went with Winston Duke because I wanted somebody big in that role again.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I was certainly looking for that too.
Yeah. For my Judge Cameron, I went with Paul Sun-Hyung Lee, who plays Mr. Kim in Kim's Convenience.
I love that.
I think he'd have a lot of fun with that role. My Mrs. Callahan, I went with Catherine Keener. I think she'd play that character really interestingly.
Okay.
For Jennifer, I went with Hannah Mae Lee. You might remember her from The Babysitter. She played one of the cult members.
Okay.
She was also in Pitch Perfect with Britney Snove.
Yes.
She was the quiet Asian girl who never spoke. So
I love her.
So I thought she'd be kind of fun in that Jennifer role.
I ate my twin in the womb.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love to hear her say that again, actually. That would be awesome. For my Harriet, the lady who lost her baby, I went with Heather Matarazzo.
Oh, I love that.
I don't know who that is.
Welcome to the Dollhouse. She was in the Princess Diaries. You'd know her to see her. She has glorious eyebrows.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
I got somebody in my cast with glorious eyebrows.
For my Allison, the nympho, I went with Gina Malone.
Oh, like it.
Because she does that switch from off to on really well. Jaffe, I went with David Castaneda from The Umbrella Academy. He plays Diego.
Nice.
Okay.
For my Danny, I think I might have to change this because we hadn't really defined him yet, but I went with Bo Burnham originally.
Oh, nice.
For my Dr. Stevens, I went with Bill Pullman. I thought that kindly nature that he kind of presents, I think would have worked really well in that role, especially if we give him more time at the beginning of the film.
Yeah, well, I think we needed to learn some. I don't know if Dr. Stevens would have been a very nice person if, with the treatment level he did, even though he did have guilt over lobotomizing Sam.
I think he would have been, honestly, I think there's a certain version of him that is kind of Dr. Masters trying to create order out of chaos.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of Bill Pullman, like good intentions, poorly executed.
Yeah. And he can do angry too, anyway.
Yeah, he can, yes. I wrote down the TV repairman Ray Daniels, but I forgot to get cast him. But I'm going to go with any bit actor you want. He's not that important.
I cast based on his mustache.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I meant to, but I missed him because
I missed him.
Awful.
I got him. I'm saving him for last.
Nice.
Perfect. And then my nurse Jane, who only has a few minutes at the beginning, I went with Candy McClure from Battlestar and Hemlock Grove.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
And then for my directors, plural, I went with Matt Bettolini-Olpin and Tyler Gillette, who directed Ready or Not and the 2022 Scream.
Oh, cool. I still haven't seen that Scream yet. I heard it's good, though.
I haven't seen it yet either, but Ready or Not
Ready or Not is great.
Yeah, and it fits right into this sort of that closed environment, kind of scary chase kind of stuff. I think that they've nailed it, and they may not want to do it again, but I think that they would do it really well.
They really would.
Cool.
And that's it.
All right.
Love it.
Trish.
Okay. So this is sort of out of order because I was trying to go with what I could find on there. For my Dr. Masters, I went with Katie Holmes because we were discussing how great we thought that she was in horror movies. And I'm like, you know what? I want to see her do this.
I can get behind that.
I want to see her be bad. I love it when she's bad. It's great. For Sam, I went with a different way with this. I went with Cody Fern from American Horror Story. He's different looking, but I think it would be interesting to have one like he's pretty, but it'd be interesting to watch him as a child, I think.
Okay.
Dr. Stevens, and this one I took out of left field because it could be humorous, it could not be humorous. I went with Jason Mantzoukas because I would like to see, I was wondering what I would do with him, but I'm like, you know what, I'd like to see him play a doctor. We're going to go with that. For the judge, I went with Ernie Hudson.
Oh, man, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I almost did for him?
He's got the gravitas.
I didn't do it, but for Judge, I almost went with Judge Reinhold.
Oh, I would have been so mad at you for doing that.
I didn't, but I really liked the idea.
Very punny.
I liked the idea.
It is a great idea. Yeah, I can't believe I didn't think of that. That's the dumb sort of thing I would do.
Exactly. That was such a Trish idea. I'm like, I can't steal it from her.
And I didn't even do it. But yeah, no. But yeah, I don't know. With Dr. Stevens, I think Jason Mantzoukas can also do drama. I've seen him do drama. Mm-hmm. For Nurse Beale, I went with Billie Lourd because she's done some cool stuff in like American Horror Story, and I feel she could really have that young naivete, but also not be a victim. Mrs. Kellingham, I went with Stephanie Cole. She's an older British actress. She was in the TV series Man Down, and Jason, you will know her as the mum on Cabin Pressure.
Oh, nice.
A podcast. Allison, I went with Greta Lee. She's been in Russian Doll and a number of other movies. She's She can do quite manic very well, I feel. Jennifer, I went with Anya Taylor-Joy. I know she's a bigger name now, but she can do a lot without saying anything. And that was sort of what I wanted.
I don't mind recognizable faces in the roles too. Like, I think that just gets you more budget in the end if you get some bigger names. But would they
can
do
give her
small
more to do
roles?
right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like she's going to be doing a range of emotions.
Sure. Yep.
For Danny, I went with Giovanni Ribisi.
Ooh.
Because that's the sort of energy I got off of him when I was looking at him. Like, yeah, this is.
I don't think there's age restrictions, but man, I would have liked Giovanni from 20 years ago to do that.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah.
For the sergeant, I went with Finn Whitrock. For no other reason than I didn't know what else to do with the sergeant, and I just think he's pretty. So I did that. Heather, the baby woman, Chloe Grace Moretz. She can do heartbreakingly tragic, but also go vicious.
I like it.
Which I loved. And that's everybody I cast, but my director, I went with Mike Flanagan from The Haunting of Hill House and all of that, because I feel how he combines absolute tragedy and heartbreak with horror is really great. And I want that energy.
Yeah, well, and he's got that Stephen King approach to how he does things. This is why they work so well together. But even before he started collaborating with King on his adaptations, you could see that in Oculus and Hush. Like, he has that approach where it's character first, and then the subsequent horror that drives it.
Yeah, and this entire movie is characters.
So I like that. Yep. Okay, for mine, I'll start with my director because otherwise I'll forget to name him. I'm going to go with Joe Begos. Joe Begos did VFW, Bliss. I'm a big fan of his. You can catch both those films over on Shudder. And he can do twisty and weird, and he does layered characters quite well. And misdirection. So, yeah. I thought he would be able to add some weirdness to this that the movie kind of already had. It just didn't run with.
Yeah.
And for my Sam, I had a tough time with Sam. I think I like Sam better.
I know. I like Sam. Sam was hard because I wanted Sam.
But I like this because my Sam certainly could be crazy.
Ooh.
Ice Cube.
I am crazy. Ice Cube would be good, yeah.
Yes.
Ice Cube is my Sam. For Nurse Charlotte, I still wanted somebody very pretty, because especially now that we've defined that, that's going to play really important to Allison's character later. I went with Victoria Justice.
Yes.
Oh. Might know her from Afterlife of the Party. For Dr. Masters, I liked that she was a bit older, and we've seen this actress be really crazy and really kind. From Misery, from American Horror Story, Kathy Bates.
I almost did that. I had her on my paper. I had her on my phone, and I was like, oh, almost.
You know I'm going to shoot big. I have no budget when it comes to my casting on paper.
Exactly.
My Dr. Stevens, Sam's going to hate this because I literally did this for a joke. Game of Thrones star, Sean Bean. I just wanted to add enough.
No, I don't hate that. I love it. Yeah. I can get behind that one, Jay.
Okay. I literally cast him because to add another death to his resume.
It was stunt casting, and I will let you have that one, Jay.
But also, I could see him being that doctor.
And there has to be at some point one line where some of the characters is like, he is so accident prone. I'm surprised he hasn't died like 100 times.
Oh, yeah. So, yes, I was stunt casting on that one, but it made me giggle.
Yes. For
Danny, and I'm thinking back to Misfits when Robert Chian had the crazy hair.
Yeah.
Like, man, that's the Danny. I couldn't unsee that Danny. Yeah. Couldn't unsee that character for Danny. So Robert Chian from Umbrella Academy. So now we've got two different people from Umbrella Academy and two different versions here. For the Sergeant Jaffe, I want somebody that actually felt like he might be a military veteran and has a little bit of military presence. Also has a history with my director, Stephen Lang.
Yes. Oh my God. That's so brilliant with Don't Breathe. We can make this a double feature, this with Don't Breathe.
I was on a similar tact with Judge Cameron. You had Ernie Hudson. Mm-hmm. I did Keith David.
Ah, sweet.
Nice, powerful presence. You could see him being a judge.
Well, and I wanted, the other part of it too is the judge says his name consistently. His name and his station so many times. I'm like, I want a voice I'm never going to get tired of hearing that from.
Mm-hmm. And I like that he's trying to get respect from people who weren't giving it to him. Mm-hmm. And especially Masters. There's going to be a power struggle there.
Yes.
Yeah. Actually, that's a layer we can add in there because he wants to take charge. And she's not having it, and she's just a stronger personality than he is.
Yeah. And Sam is the one who kind of helps keep him out of power.
For Allison, I have a different Allison. It wasn't intentional. I saw this actress and I thought, yes, I can see her in this part. Because I like that Allison, although attractive, wasn't like a knockout attractive. Mm-hmm. And just felt like a normal person.
Somebody real and damaged. Yes, it was heartbreaking.
And I thought Allison Brie could bring that to that character.
Yeah, she could. And she was actually on my short list for that character, actually.
Right.
Well, what was it that she was in that movie about best friends not sleeping together or something? And she was like a sex addict. It's there. Like she's done the role. Kind of.
And I also was looking for if we add some nudity to her character like this movie had, she's certainly willing to do it. Mm-hmm. So I kept that in mind with my casting. For Jennifer, I went with Crystal Reed from the Swamp Thing, the TV show.
Nice.
Didn't really have anything in mind because she was so underdeveloped, but I kind of put in my mind, well, if she's a drug addict, she might have done whatever she could to do it, including turning tricks and things in her life that really damaged her, used by people, thrown away, threw herself away. So, I want somebody who's attractive, but we could strip down and see her at her worst.
Yeah.
I don't know if she'd be able to pull it off, to be honest, but I thought there would be interesting casting there. Mm-hmm. For Harriet, I went with Kate Mara from House of Cards.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
That's my mighty eyebrows.
Yes. Yes, definitely mighty eyebrows.
Yes. For Mrs. Kellingham, I went with a still with us at 92, Tippi Hedren from The Birds.
Oh, sweet. That was the problem I had with Mrs. Kellingham. I was like going, ooh, dead. Dead.
I Googled actresses over 90.
Wow. I would have loved Betty White, but...
if Betty was still with us, it would have been Betty White.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For Nurse Jane, the one that leaves at the beginning of the movie, I went with Reba McEntire. Just thought that would be a fun role for her to kind of swing in for a little bit in the horror movie and then get axed and get out.
Yeah.
And for my telephone repairman, as I said, I cast on the mustache, Kim Coates.
Yay!
Okay, yeah, I like it.
I do like that.
I mean, unfortunately, age doesn't matter because I think he's in his 60s already. So, but I think he'd be a great delivery driver, though.
Sure.
Oh, and I want to see, I like the interaction where I think it would be. I want to see Kim Coates go like, "Yeah, you're a nice lady, but I'm not going for this."
Yeah.
Like have Allison really go for it. And he's like,
yeah. Well, then, it's like I'm old enough to be your father, right?
Yeah.
You can have sort of
grandfather
that
if we're pushing it.
Yeah. Yeah, you can lead into that.
Listen here, young lady.
Yeah, actually, I wound up having some fun with this casting.
It's so good. Speaking of the nurse who dies, which we know she's pretty much killed by Harriet. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's really the only other death in there. Yeah, that isn't related to Dr. Masters. And that was that rate, because all day this poor girl's getting her baby taken away and she just kind of freaked and had enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't know, do we have Masters put the baby in the room? I don't know how or do we even need that death? I guess that's what I'm asking.
Well, you need that.
You need her to die because you don't need her going out into the world and telling people what happened.
Yeah. Does it have
to be actually, I think you kind of need something to unleash the violence in other characters. Mm-hmm. So you know that they're going to be capable of murder, even though they're not responsible for any of the murders. But that's part of what makes this movie work, is that misdirect thinking they are killing people. Because we think Allison might have murdered the repairman.
Yeah.
So as long as you have one character doing it.
I guess it's just sort of how to handle the cover up of that without looking like it raises suspicion.
Well, she was packing to leave anyway. I don't know who's going to cover it up. It could be Masters finding the body and covering it up. Just stuff the body in the suitcase and stuff it in a corner.
Put it in the basement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she doesn't even know maybe that Stevens is down there. Tell Sam, take this down to the basement.
There you go.
You know what? That happens before Stevens dies. We switch that order of that, right? Because that's part of why Stevens is having that session is that Nurse Jane has left. He doesn't know that she's dead.
I like that idea. And that shows Master's first turn as trying to keep things under wraps.
I like
Exactly,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Keep the status quo. That's good. There we go.
So she's already in the basement before he ends up down there.
That helps. Yeah. That was the one little niglet of something it was itching my brain and I didn't like it.
Well, at the beginning of the podcast, I asked everybody for their ratings. You're right in line with every other critic out there. 4.9 out of 10 on IMDb. And there wasn't enough on Rotten Tomatoes for a critic score, but I'll let you guys take a stab at the audience score just for shits and giggles.
Oh, 40?
And Sam?
Knowing how mixed people feel about this movie, I'm going to stick it right at that 51%.
25%.
25%.
Wow.
Yeah.
They did not see what we saw, apparently.
No,
No.
I was actually quite impressed with this. I still couldn't give it more. I mean, the cheap production values. I honestly think in some cases the cheap production values kind of help this movie and hide some of its flaws and gives us a little bit of a rawness that kind of works.
It does. And I think basically I'm going to lay it kind of the hands of a short shooting schedule where you can't spend the time with the characters. Because like if we'd spent more time getting to know everyone, I think it would have really improved this movie vastly.
Yeah. Okay, I kept promising some secrets about Sam.
Yes.
I did watch the sequel. So, in the sequel, 40 years later, Sam has been brought in as this patient with the history from this original movie, and it's become a doctor like, hey, this is going to be your primary focus. And he's trying to learn more about Sam.
Okay.
And now, of course, Sam's going to be a much older character at this point.
Yeah.
And he's trying to learn more about the patient. And things are starting to get weird in this mental facility. There are definitely more doctors, and there's another angry person in charge. And we find out Sam, with his history with Dr. Stevens, the lobotomy and his obsession with boats, they're trying to pull these threads in from the original movie work, because he had this obsession with boats. He liked to draw and make little paper boats and stuff. So what happened was, apparently Sam was a doctor that worked with Dr. Stevens and got lent the boat, had an accident, and Stevens was trying to help him and save him, and accidentally lobotomized his friend.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So it wasn't an intentional lobotomization.
Yeah.
He's just a fuck up.
Oh, this movie gets weird. It actually starts in a pretty good place, and I think it's going all right. And then we find out during the course of the movie that, because he can't find out where Stevens' sanatorium was.
Oh.
And then he finds out eventually from some of the orderlies that they're in it. They are working in Stevens' sanatorium. It's been renamed. He had no idea that the place they're in. So you brought the guy back who killed everybody 40 years ago back into the same asylum he was in before.
Oh my.
And he's doing the same thing. He's like, oh, but Dr. Stevens said this and Dr. Stevens said that. He's still doing it. Now we know Stevens is long dead. And we've got this shadow of the asylum kind of, now that Sam's back in it, things are starting to happen, and patients and staff are starting to exhibit the same symptoms of the characters from the first movie. So we actually have one of the doctors starting to act like Allison, etc., etc.
Are they possessed?
Kind of. They're starting to exhibit the same traits, and some people who are actually sane and working there are exhibiting these traits. And it's going in. It started in an interesting place, and then it just went off the rails. Like, what the fuck?
Is it an enjoyable off the rails?
I
though?
liked it. I liked it a lot.
Okay.
But, I mean, I still wouldn't rank it any higher than the original. I would rank it a little less. Like,
How's the production value?
Much better.
Okay.
The acting's meh, but, no more or more meh than the original.
Yeah.
But the production values are much better. It was not the way I would have gone, but it was certainly that's a choice. It was a fun choice. It was a crazy choice. I'm like, if you want to go for this infamous Video Nasty Grindhouse movie and go in that direction, yep, that's definitely a sequel to that. And you've added the supernatural element that we kind of hinted at the beginning of the episodes that kind of comes in there. And it's not really, they're like, they know something weird's going on. Turns out the person running this new sanatorium brought Sam in because she wanted to help him. She changed her name, but she was Nurse Charlotte.
Oh my god.
And she had guilt over killing Masters and failing to help Sam.
Oh my god.
And then she winds up committing suicide and everything goes off the rails.
Oh.
It's quite the movie.
That's
I almost watched it. If I'd had time, I was going to watch it, but I just couldn't find the time, unfortunately.
Yeah, you can find both on YouTube.
Okay. I might have to investigate this.
It was something. It was something else. I like, wow, that's a turn.
Sounds like fun.
I enjoyed it, but so that's the 40-year. Took 40 years to come up with that plot, but you know what? They had fun with it. I think it was an interesting. Oh, and I forgot about one of because this new doctor who's treating Sam.
Yeah,
there's a bit of rivalry with another doctor who we find out's possessed by Dr. Stevens.
Oh my god!
Oh, Lord.
So he's got some jealousy. This possessed guy who thinks he's Dr. Stevens and that's why the cigarette thing I took from as an example came from this movie, and he's been treating these people with obsession therapy. That's why I say Stevens wasn't the greatest guy either.
No, well,
and he's possessed, and then we get a little bit of verbal diarrhea, and that's when we find out about Sam. And I'm like, oh, this is getting bad. But at the same time, I had fun watching it because it's
bad in the best way.
Yeah, I mean, they both kind of are, aren't they?
Yeah. But I love the bonkers choice. Like possession, we're going to go with mental illness to just possession.
Yeah.
That's fun.
I should mention this has been somebody's tried to remake this before, never got off the ground. There's currently one in pre-production back since 2017 called Death Ward 13. Probably not going to get off the ground either. So we thought we'd take a stab
we want
at it.
credit because we think we got a good winner here.
Yeah. I mean, I think the secret is to kind of treat it a little more seriously.
Yeah.
You know, get to know your characters a little bit more so you have empathy for them and what they're going through.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, the thought of like the patients taking over the asylum has been around. Like there's several, like there's a Tales from the Crypt episode that's like that. Like, I mean, it's a fear. It was a fear that people had, and it was a fear that people wanted to investigate.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps up Don't April. I don't recommend doing this again.
No.
It was fun to do this theme, but we don't
try this at home.
We don't repeat themes in April, so hope you enjoyed it. We're not going to do it again, but doesn't mean we won't do more Don't movies. And if you have suggestions for another Don't movie, please let us know on our social media at Invasion Remake on Twitter, Invasion of the Remake on Facebook and Instagram, and invasionoftheremake@gmail.com. And over there, you can send us your suggestions, your corrections, and your comments. Of course, your fan challenges as well. Now that we're through theme month, we can definitely look at some more of your fan challenges. So keep them coming, and we'll try to get some more scheduled for this year as well. You can also help out the show by telling people who don't listen to listen and tell them how to find us. We're in a ton of different places, and you can find a lot of those over on our website. Sam?
That would be invasionoftheremake.wixsite.com/podcast.
Yeah, and by doing so, you're going to help get more
earballs
on the show. Over there's also a handy dandy little button that'll take you to our store. We got t-shirts, mugs, posters, PPE masks, and so much more. So when you grab yourself something nice, and they are comfortable shirts, and there's lots of cool ones, and movie poster designs, and lots of cool stuff that you're going to be proud to wear. And people go, hey, that's a cool shirt. Where did you get it? And you can tell them to go to our store and grab it. And every little penny helps support the show and keep it free to you every single week.
Yeah. And you also get to look good. Who doesn't want to look good?
That's right.
Exactly. And it's not super branded, not all of it. So you're not like, don't have Invasion of the Remakes blazoned all over you, but it's there.
Yeah, we got some subtle stuff. We got some not so subtle stuff, but we got lots of subtle stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to dig it once you start looking through that store. And it's over at TeePublic, so sign up. You can get alerts to when sales happen and when new product arrives. So you can follow us like you can on any kind of social media platform. So do that and keep checking back because you never know what new designs are going to hit our store.
Exactly.
That's right.
And sales are great. Go on the sales.
That's right. All right, well, that was Don't Month, and that was Don't Look in the Basement, and a bonus review of Don't Look in the Basement 2.
Fascinating.
I've been Jason.
I'm always Sam.
And I continue to be Trish.
And we are out of here.
What's wrong, Allison? Calm down and tell me what's wrong.
She killed him. She killed him.
Who are you talking about?
He loved me. He told me that he loved me, and she killed him because he loved me. Oh, Masters killed him because he loved me, Charlotte. She's a murdering, crucified man, insane maniac. She's insane, Charlotte. Dr. Masters? She's no doctor. She's just like the rest of us here, and she killed him. You didn't know that, did you? She's a patient of Dr. Stevens. She's a schizophrenic just like me. She can't control her emotions any more than I can.
Where is Dr. Masters now?
Oh, Miss Charlotte.
Yes, I remember you told me he was.
Oh, Charlotte, you've got to believe me. All these things have been happening ever since you came here. Masters did it. She cut out Mrs. Kellingham's tongue. And she killed my man. Masters did it.
How do you know?
She's a patient like me. Dr. Stevens' patient. She pretended to be a doctor. He let her play, and she was pretending when you came, and you believed her, Charlotte.
That's not true, Allison.
Oh, yes, it is true. Why do you think she wouldn't let you leave? Why do you think she wouldn't let anybody in? Anybody who threatens to expose her, Charlotte, she'll kill him.
How do you know?
Charlotte, she'll kill anybody that threatens to expose her, and she'll kill you.